Does God have a name? The Bible mentions the names of many gods. The nation surrounding ancient Israel worshipped deities named Ashtoreth, Baal, and Molech. The first-century Christians lived among people who worship such deities as Artemis, Hermes, and Zeus, and the names of those gods are recorded in the Bible. The Bible acknowledges that there are many gods, but the name of one God appears in ancient manuscripts of the Bible far more times than the names of all the other gods combined. If you read modern Bibles, you will still find the names of the other gods. However, many Bibles have removed the name of the most frequently mentioned God. The name of that God appears some 7,000 times in the oldest versions of the Bible. Who is the God whose name has been removed from the Bible? The first part of the Bible, often called the Old Testament, was written in Hebrew and a related language, Aramaic. In Hebrew, God's name is represented by 4 letters. Hebrew is read from right to left. In English, those 4 letters are rendered by the consonants YHWH. The original vowel sounds used in God's name are unknown, with the 4 letters representing God's name appeared throughout ancient Bible manuscripts and have been inscribed in many other locations. In English, a popular rendering of God's name is Jehovah. Another rendering is Yahweh. Some Bibles use one of these forms of God's name at Psalm 83, verse 18, and in several other places. A number of other translations, such as the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures, restore God's name to the locations in which it originally appeared. Since God had his personal name included in the Bibles of the 7,000 times, he no doubt wants us to know and use that name. In the law God gave to Israel, he told Moses to write, "Listen, O Israel, Jehovah, our God is one Jehovah." Jesus quoted that passage from the law, so he obviously knew and used God's personal name in one of his final prayers before his death. Jesus said to Jehovah God, "I have made your name known." A man can have many titles: husband, father, architect, and a personal name such as John. In the same way, God has many appropriate titles: Almighty, Creator, and Lord. He also has a unique name, one not shared by any other God. That name is Jehovah. The divine name, its use and its meaning. In your copy of the Bible, how is Psalm 83 verse 18 translated? The New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures renders this verse, "May people know that you, whose name is Jehovah, you alone are the Most High over all the earth." A number of other Bible translations give similar renderings. However, many translations leave out the name Jehovah, replacing it with such titles as Lord or Eternal. What belongs in this verse? A title or the name Jehovah? This verse speaks about a name. In the original Hebrew in which much of the Bible was written, a unique personal name appears here. It is spelled YHWH in Hebrew letters. In English, the common rendering of that name is Jehovah. Does that name occur in only one Bible verse? No. It appears in the original text of the Hebrew Scriptures nearly 7,000 times. How important is God's name? Consider the model prayer that Jesus Christ gave. It begins this way: "Our Father in the heavens, let your name be sanctified." Later, Jesus prayed to God, "Father, glorify your name." In response, God spoke from heaven, saying, "I have glorified it and will glorify it again." Clearly, God's name is of the utmost importance. Why, then, have some translators left this name out of their translations of the Bible and replaced it with titles? There seem to be 2 main reasons. First, many claim that the name should not be used because the original way to pronounce it is unknown today. Ancient Hebrew was written without vowels. Therefore, no one today can say for sure exactly how people of Bible times pronounced YHWH. However, should this prevent us from using God's name? In Bible times, the name Jesus may have been pronounced Yeshua or possibly Yehoshua, no one can say for certain. Yet, people the world over today use different forms of the name Jesus, pronouncing it in the way that is common in their language. They do not hesitate to use the name just because they do not know its first-century pronunciation. Similarly, if you were to travel to a foreign land, you might well find that your own name sounds quite different in another tongue. Hence, uncertainty about the ancient pronunciation of God's name is no reason for not using it. A second reason often given for omitting God's name from the Bible involves a long-standing tradition of the Jews. Many of them hold that God's name should never be pronounced. This belief is evidently based on a misapplication of a Bible law that states, "You must not take up the name of Jehovah your God in a worthless way, for Jehovah will not leave unpunished the one who takes up his name in a worthless way." This law forbids the misuse of God's name. But does it forbid the respectful use of his name? Not at all. The writers of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, were all faithful men who lived by the law that God gave to the ancient Israelites. Yet, they made frequent use of God's name. For instance, they included it in many psalms that were sung out loud by crowds of worshippers. Jehovah God even instructed his worshippers to call on his name, and faithful ones obeyed. Hence, Christians today do not hesitate to use God's name respectfully, as Jesus surely did. On August 8, 2008, the Vatican directed that the name, Yahweh, is no longer allowed to be used or pronounced in songs and prayers during liturgical celebrations. In replacing God's name with titles, Bible translators make a serious mistake. They make God seem remote and impersonal, whereas the Bible urges humans to cultivate close friendship with Jehovah. Think of a close friend of yours. How close would you really be if you never learned your friend's name? Similarly, when people are kept in ignorance about God's name, Jehovah, how can they become truly close to God? Furthermore, when people do not use God's name, they also lack knowledge of its wonderful meaning. What does the divine name mean? God himself explained the meaning of his name to his faithful servant Moses. When Moses asked about God's name, Jehovah replied, "I will become what I choose to become." So Jehovah can become whatever is needed in order to fulfill his purposes, and he can cause to happen whatever is required with regard to his creation and the accomplishment of his purpose. As you study the Bible, you will be amazed to see how Jehovah becomes whatever is needed in order to fulfill his promises. And it pleases him to use his power in behalf of those who love him. These beautiful facets of Jehovah's personality are lost to those who do not know his name. Clearly, the name Jehovah belongs in the Bible. Knowing its meaning and using it freely in our worship are powerful aids in drawing closer to our Heavenly Father, Jehovah. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, leave your comments below and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. God bless.